All right, America, it's time for the Ringside Wranglers Wrestling Report with your hosts, Haz-Bin and Jack Jaw.
What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Jack Jaw, the host of the Ringside Wrangler Wrestling Report. My sidekick this week, as always, is Haz-Bin. What's up, Haz-Bin?
I'm doing great. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Good. Here in Louisiana, they finally decided to open up everything back to somewhat normalcy. So we'll see how it goes. How about that?
Oh, it's going all right. So I'm Jack Jaw. What we do weekly is we cover the news from the WWE, AEW. Sometimes we hit on Impact. Sometimes we hit on NWA. All the other ones, but for sure, we always hit on independents. We love the independents. And this week, we've got a special guest, none other than Kevin Kalloway. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having a true artist of despair onto this fine established podcast.
You are the man. I've been looking at you for the last couple of weeks. I reached out to you. I was so excited you wanted to join us. And what we wanted to do is just get what's going on in the indie world up in the Michigan area, which is, I'm assuming that's where you're from.
Yep.
And we saw that you were a two-time champion in Wrestling All-Stars of Detroit, which is pretty sweet. We love to have champions on the show. We love them all on the show. But either way, just give us a big what's going on up there in Michigan in the indie world.
So, of course, in the indie world right now, Michigan is one of the worst hit by the coronavirus, so everything's kind of closed down. But before we were leaving, there has been a lot of promotions that have really been picking up steam out in the Midwest area, which has been nice. And Detroit itself has been somewhat of a hotbed. There's many places for you to kind of find and work for and really get your name out there in the Michigan area. A lot of people stay in Michigan, which I think is a hindrance to your career, because you should be able to get your name out there, just like this podcast. You guys are from the great state of Louisiana, and I'm all the way up in Michigan. So getting your name out there to different places is good, but there's many places to work in Michigan. It's kind of hard to pick sometimes.
Yes, that's pretty cool because so many people around here, you see them wrestling for the same. They've got the Wrestling 225. They've got, we discover ones we go, I didn't even know that even exist. And they have their little pool of wrestlers, and you don't see a lot of commingling. So I like the fact when I look somebody up, I see, they're with this one. They're with this one. They're wrestling these guys. Because we love to hit those indie shows when they start kicking. We'll go and check them out. It's fun times, good times. So, yeah, I was looking at your stuff, and I liked your little persona the producer and I, Punk, were going back and forth. What kind of character do you think he is? So give us a rundown of what your role is and what angles you like to play and who you're currently feuding with, or who are they stories that they're writing for you?
So I always, I am a person who loves to bring despair to others. Now that could be a person who is just bringing the fans too far up with their hope. I just can't stand to see some of that happen. But it could also be a person who maybe is bending the rules a bit too much, and they need to be a bit strengthened by this despair and find it in their hearts to come to terms with it. As far as me as a person, I like to use the medium of my artwork. I'm sure as you've looked it up, I have my own paintings that I paint myself and bring to the ring and allow others to bask in the glory of my art. That allows me the medium to really bring that despair forward into the forefront, to the fans, to the other opponents, anything that I really need to do. As far as my style in the ring, well, I always say I'm very straight to the point. I always really like to make sure that I'm hitting them hard, but I don't do really anything flashy. The flashiest thing I do is, of course, the dead hour, which is the thing that has put many people within the confines of a hospital bed. Because a double hammerlock Piledriver, there's no hands to stop it. They're behind their back. They're getting spiked like a railroad spike right into the ground. As far as angles I like to add, I am a story-based man. I don't really care about flashy moves. I care about what we're giving to the people. So when I give that thing to the people, I want to make sure it makes sense. I want to make sure it's simple enough to follow. And I want to make sure that it can get across no matter what.
Cool. What you got, Has-Bin? I see you chomping at the bit. This is your kind of guy.
Kevin, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but when I first get a look at you, you remind me a lot of Aleister Black. Would you consider that a compliment? I hope you do.
I would consider it a compliment. I would consider it a compliment. I love Aleister Black.
Just the persona, just listening to you talk, and just the demeanor that you bring. It looks like you're a no nonsense kind of dude, and the wrong person gets in your face, they're going to pay for it, just like Aleister Black would. And how are they? You mentioned up in Michigan. I know when people think of Michigan, maybe modern day folks, they'll think of Rick and Scott Steiner, and you've got Rob Van Dam, and there's a lot of other guys from Michigan as well. But we've always been very fond of the Midwest area of Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio. I mean, that's a really strong area. And I know back in the territory days, it was really big. But how do you think wrestling has evolved, either positive or negative, or maybe just somewhere in between from back in the days of the territory, 70s, 80s to where it is now? One of the reasons why I use the moniker Haz-Bin is because I like to watch the old stuff in the 80s, the Crockett's and Mid-South and things of that sort. And I think that's kind of where people my age kind of cut our teeth in being fans. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on how things were back then and how they've evolved to where they are today.
So when I went through training out at House of Truth, I was under Truth Martini and a man called Paul Bowser, and they really taught me. They really ingrained in that old style, and a lot of people don't really flock to it these days. I think it's kind of evolved into an artwork that is more, it feels more choreographed. There's more things that might be more unrealistic, and it's not that it's bad, because it isn't. I really appreciate people who can do 3 flips in a row, not be gasping for air. But that's not what really gravitated me towards wrestling. I'm much more of an 80s style, almost 90s style. I really enjoy those things. And in the ring, I think it's very important to be able to be believable no matter what. And believable is really that simple stuff. I mean, no one's going to believe really that they're staying there for a moonsault for a minute and a half, unless you hit them with a chair. But I could believe that I could hit someone with a punch.
Absolutely. It's just when you'll watch on the WWE network is when I'm really going to plug the most, because obviously they have all the material from the WCWAs and all, but you'll watch, like, for example, NWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling on TBS on Saturday night back in the mid 80s, and you'll watch that stuff, and Arn Anderson goes in the ring, and Ole and Arn go in the ring, and they'll take the one body part and they'll render it useless, like they say, and they'll just destroy the person, and then it's over with, and they make the guy submit. They go out and they start hollering how they're going to beat up Magnum TA and Ole Anderson and Dusty Rhodes and everybody else, Nikita Koloff. But you don't see that anymore. Now, like you said, it's kind of like they'll go in there and they'll do all these wild flipping from turnbuckle to turnbuckle stuff. And again, that's athletic and it's awesome and I love it. But it's just from the mark standpoint, wrestling fan, it's like, man, this is not what I saw 20, 30 years ago. Now, I know the times have changed now. Vehicles have changed, food's changed, I understand. But I kind of miss watching that older stuff like you saw. And that's one of the things that right off the bat, I'm really impressed by you saying that. And I'm watching your material right now on the screen. It's just you go in there and you've got a purpose of what you want to do, and it's not. I mean, you certainly want to put on a show and you want to make the fans happy to come back and see you, putting the butts in seats, like they say. But at the same time, it's kind of like you're making your name for yourself. You're evolving yourself as Kevin Kalloway. You're the wrestler. You're who you are. You're not trying to be somebody else. And right off the bat, that really impresses me. For whatever that's worth, it impresses the hell out of me.
I appreciate it. Most of the time, I think the big thing that's changed actually for the wrestling world is the accessibility. So when it came to around the mid 2000s, social media started coming off with like MySpace and Facebook and everything along those lines. So that made wrestlers and their personas much more accessible, but that also really hurt believability. Because then anything that those wrestlers post, like they can say it's their personal account or their business account or whatever. There's plenty of that these days. But really, it's just the people see one person. It doesn't matter. So what you're putting out there is affecting your believability no matter what. And if you guys, and it sounds like you guys have looked into me pretty much, you'll notice that my social media is pretty bare unless it has to do with my stuff.
Yep.
And I do that purposefully. It doesn't matter what my personal opinion is. it matters what my persona's opinion is, and that's what I market myself as, because otherwise it completely destroys the believability aspect of everything that I do, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. Other people may have a different opinion of that, because it adds to a lot of other things too. But that's what I'm trying to do, is really bring that believability of the 80s and 90s back.
So
this almost scares me.
Go ahead, Haz-Bin.
Go ahead, Jack. No, I was going to say this almost scares me, because I'm not anywhere worthy enough to talk about kayfabe and things of that sort. And I don't even think I have the right to say that. I know a lot of people still use that term back from the circus days and on and out. But what you're saying, Kevin, I totally agree, because back even with the social media these days, back then that wouldn't have even heard of. You go in the locker room now as a fan or a reporter, they'll kick you out. You look at what Dr. Schultz did, that whole deal with Dark Side of the Ring. But I appreciate what you're saying, because even with social media, there's you can still get over as almost free publicity to your fans in a sense, but you still keep that kayfabe persona where this is me, and you don't need to know anything else. It's like less is more. You only need to know what you need to know. And if you do that the way you're saying, I think it's great. It's a great tool.
Oh yeah. The moniker I have been taught and drilled in that I've had the most throughout all of this is that less is more. So the less that I do, and the quicker I can do it, the more efficiently, the more impactful it is.
That's awesome. So what's going on with all the pandemic stuff? Have they been talking anything up there, like any potential shows coming up? We have something going on down here that it's kind of like you got to check in week by week, because it looks like they're trying to pull something off where they're going to do some social distancing show where they're going to have limited tickets. They're going to seat people around just to have something to build some of these guys, because a lot of these indie guys are just sitting around. We've talked to a few of them over the last couple of weeks, and they're just chomping at the bit to do something, trying to keep their social media active to maintain their relevance. So is there anything they're talking about going on in your area that's shows coming up, trying to get something going off?
So I know the people over at Horrorslam are chomping at the bit to start booking their shows again, because they were getting a really good run because they had a GCW. We actually had a Horrorslam versus GCW show coming up, where we had a ton of GCW guys coming in, and that had to get canceled because of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So they're really chomping at the bit. They already have a June date set. So that one's happening on June. I don't remember exactly in June, but it is in June. And then the second the stay at home is lifted, I've had 2 or 3 promoters reaching out to me looking for shows. So I imagine the stay at home is supposed to be lifted in the 28th of May. They'll be talking about shows by the 29th.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, they've got 2 shows down here. There's one not too far from us, and there's one down in New Orleans that have June dates. The one the later in June, that's the bigger one. It's a group called Wildcat Wrestling, and they bring in some pretty good guys. I mean, they have the local guys that are really up and coming guys, really talented, and then they bring in some names from back in the day. Who was the guy from ECW? Haz-Bin. They got the guy was the part of. He used to pitch. Either way, it's pretty cool to see some of these guys come back and support the indies, because you think, man, wonder where they've been. There they are, and it's pretty cool. It makes it exciting to go to those shows. Either way, so we're definitely chomping at the bit ourselves to get some of these indie shows going. So, was there any particular wrestler you liked working with? Because I saw a couple times where you were wrestling the same guy. I think you wrestled the guy for the title of the Detroit All-Star.
That was probably Chuck. Yeah, Chuck Stein.
Yes.
Yes. Chuck Stein's very easy.
Yeah.
I like working with him because both of our styles are very to the point. And I appreciate working with people who are to the point, because then I can do what I need to do in the ring. I don't have to remember 10 million things. And we can just kind of go out there and feel the crowd, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
As far as like unique people I've gotten to work with, I think out of the unique ones I've gotten to work with, I got to work with Josh Alexander in a triple threat match, which was really nice. I learned a lot of things, but I think the most unique experience I ever had working with someone was a man by the name of Drexel. I worked with him. He works in the Seattle area, but he was coming to Michigan for whatever reason. And I had the opportunity to work with him in what they called a 3 Circles of Hell match, which was a triple threat match, hardcore submissions only. I do believe there is footage of it on YouTube if you want to look it up. But the match itself was really cool because a guy came in and I had no idea who he was, but he was just like this prolific guy who knew what he wanted to do. And I just appreciate that in a person. The experience itself was really cool.
That is cool. So we have a Florida fan. I'm originally from Florida.
Kevin,
I moved before college and just stayed here. I like it here. But my family lives in Florida, and there's a huge wrestling scene down there. It's pretty cool. So Florida fan says, hey, said come down to Florida. So who knows?
Hey, my parents live in Florida. I'll come to Florida.
There you go. So what you got, Haz-Bin? Anything you're thinking of? He's solidly still. Either way, so coming up. So do you get like invited? Are you interacting with other organizations, or is it pretty much just predominantly the one or two?
I have a couple bookings coming up around the Indiana area. They haven't announced shows yet, but they've reached out to me. I've started to get out of the Michigan area because, again, like I had alluded to earlier, I think it's a detriment to my career to not leave the Michigan area. So I'm going down to Indiana, I believe, in July. And then I'm reaching out to other organizations in Ohio and Chicago and just the Midwest area that I'm able to travel to at the current state.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kevin, I noticed, I remember watching I remember watching a WCW show. It was at the Joe Louis Arena, and that's when I was able to realize how close Detroit is to Ontario, right across the river from Canada. Have you had a chance to do any Canadian shows being that close to Detroit?
I have not yet. I just got my enhanced.
How did you like the experience up there?
I want to go up there so bad because Can-Am's up there too, and I'd like to go to Can-Am to learn more things. Because their training school is linked with Impact Wrestling. Scott D'Amore runs it, I believe. So going up there to Canada would be a really big thing for my career. It's actually one of the goals I have for this year is to go up there and really put in some work in Canada.
Cool. So any final words? One quick question. So you mentioned
because we always
a read on your character and stuff. Is it so much like a heel face type thing, or is it just a blend and you're just in the middle of the road? You'll take anybody.
I like to be able to have a variety of options. So obviously, in the state of this persona, it is more apt to be the heel, so to speak. Yeah. But to pigeonhole myself as only a heel, I believe, is also a detriment because there's plenty of other organizations that I have to go to, and they're going to say, "Hey, we need you to do this." And I'm going to need to do that.
Yeah. We had a guy on a couple weeks ago, Cyrus the Destroyer. When we asked him that question, he was like, sometimes he goes to places and they say, just be a giant. Just don't do anything. Just be the giant and roll with the punches and how it goes. The fans interact with you, how they interact with you. But don't break the rules or don't do this or don't do that. Just be a giant. So that's pretty cool.
We have a saying up in Michigan that's FIO. Figure it out. Yeah. Sometimes that's how it works.
Yep. So Haz-Bin, you got any final comments?
Just Kevin, I really wish you the best, and I really hope you have an opportunity to go to Canada because from what you're saying, if it has some links to Impact, it's great. A lot of the guys, the independent folks we've talked to, they all kind of agree in unison where they say if you have the luxury and the ability to go to Japan or Mexico or Canada or England, it's worth the while because just the style of training there is something that you'll be able to use. You can store it as a rainy day fun. You can use it as part of your act, and I hope you get a chance to go up there because from what you're saying, I think you have a great shot at getting into Impact.
Thank you, appreciate that.
That's awesome. So, any final things, Kevin, to say? Anything you want to tell the fans out there? Besides, we're ready for you to come back quick.
Yeah. Whenever all of this hope stops spreading around, be prepared for more despair.
Nice. Well, we'll be following you, and like I said, if you've got any events you want us to push, like, hey, Kevin Kalloway is going to be appearing here. Hit us up. We always end our show covering independents, just plugging them. We've got ECPW. I mean, they're probably further away from us than you are.
Oh, wow.
they've reached out to us. I follow their program. I pitch their Facebook all the time. I'll go in there and watch the wrestling videos that they post on there. They put legends on there from way back, and I'll share them, put them out there. So any kind of help we can do to promote what you got going on or any organization you're working with, we love to push them all and make them a part of our show. And we love bringing in people from all over the place just to draw more attention to what's going on in the world of indie wrestling. So we appreciate you coming on. And
appreciate you having me.
And you're a great guest. And thanks again. So check you later, Kevin. We'll be following you.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. So Haz-Bin. We're going to do what we normally do.
Really good guess.
We're going to run through WWE. We're coming out of the Money in the Bank, and you and I texted a couple times during that show. It was a little, I don't know, up down, whatever you want to call it. I thought I'd do is just give you the rundown. If you didn't know it already, we'll give you the rundown of what happened. Right out.
Well, they're talking about this new normal thing. They're talking about the new normal thing. It's definitely a new normal now because you have Becky Lynch, who I honest to God, I'm sorry, I thought that was a work because of the fact that I know I had read through the dirt sheets that she had gotten this lucrative movie contract, and The Rock and John Cena and Dave Bautista were promising to help her get training and do all this stuff. And I really thought that was all just a way to make a clean transition break. But I am very sorry. I'm Godfrey sorry that I was wrong, and I do wish her the best. As she and Seth Rollins, I hope that she has no complications and brings a new baby in the world, and maybe it'll be the next women's champion. Who knows? And then also part of this new normalcy thing they talk about. There's no way. I did read briefly that Otis was going to get a push from Mr. McMahon through the sheets again, but there was no way I thought that they would have put the Money in the Bank on him. Although say what you want. In terms of Asuka having it, I think that would be the best to have champion, because she did give Becky short of she gave Becky the toughest fighter of her life, and with Charlotte being the NXT champion, it was only fair that Asuka got that.
I got you. So let's start it off real quick. We'll run through what happened. Money in the Bank. We had a leadoff match. Jeff Hardy taking out Cesaro. I thought that match could have gone either way. I guess it's definitely Jeff Hardy is back in the fold, and he's going to continue to get his push. Going into Sheamus, that's going to be exciting. I'm not sure if they knew what was going to go down with the IC title at Money in the Bank, but we'll talk about that in a little while, what happened with the Intercontinental title. Also at Money in the Bank, you had SmackDown Tag Championship on the line. The New Day wins that. Then you had R-Truth, who he thought he was going to be fighting MVP, outwalks Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley just squashes R-Truth. Next up, you had the SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. She takes out Tamina, maybe the help a little bit of Sasha Banks, who knows, but looks like that the angle between those.
We know a little bit.
Go ahead.
It was a lot of help from Sasha Banks.
Oh, yeah. Then you had the Braun.
There's a lot of help from Sasha Banks on that one, no doubt.
No doubt. Braun Strowman takes out Bray Wyatt. That was one that I thought could have gone the other way. Who knows? Happy for Braun Strowman, especially when they pitched that angle right there where you were thinking he was going to go back to the Wyatt family. And then he said no. He says he's his own man now. So Braun Strowman gets the win there. And then you had for the WWE Championship, you had Drew McIntyre taking out Seth Rollins. That was a pretty good match as well. Drew McIntyre's a legit champion. It's just sad that he's got the title at this time with the wrestling and the studios. Hopefully he'll soon and very soon they'll get into some real shows, and you'll get to see the power or lack of power that Drew McIntyre brings to that championship. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Osaka gets the women's Money in the Bank victory, and Otis gets the men's. So on to Monday Night Raw after this, the Monday Night Raw after Money in the Bank. I was somewhat excited to see how they were going to pitch the Otis going forward. But like you said, they start off the show with Becky Lynch talking, the Money in the Bank. She brings out the Money in the Bank. Little did you know that she had the title belt in that briefcase, and she gives up her title to Osaka. Osaka starts to party. Didn't see that one coming. it's funny when stuff happens on Raw and then you go online to see when this happened, when this was going to break, and it was like broke like earlier on Monday. So apparently somebody was on the end and they knew and they put it out there that she quote unquote was pregnant and she needed to take a break. So she's going to be a mama, as she says. Oh, well, I think the WWE is going to miss her because she held that title for well over a year. So she was a definite good champion. Like I said, you already gave your take on that. Next up, you had
longest reign.
Go ahead.
She had the longest reign. I don't know if she'll be able to come back though.
Yeah, you never can tell. It'll be.
I don't know if she's gonna be able to come back or not. I know Booker T on the Tuesday night deal on Fox Sports 1. Yeah, Booker T on Fox Sports 1 said he didn't think she was going to come back. And when you think about it, I mean, Brie Bella couldn't come back, and then Maurice with the Miz, she couldn't come back. So I don't know if she's going to be able to come back if she gives birth, hopefully, to a healthy baby. So maybe her career is over with, maybe not. But she certainly was one hell of an athlete. I'll give her that.
Yeah, no doubt. Next up, after the top of the show, Becky Lynch gives up her belt. Then you had Bobby Lashley beating up Humberto Carrillo via submission after his full Nelson. Bobby Lashley, I just don't know why he's not top bill. I mean, he just continues to perform. I'm hoping that they've dumped that whole angle with his quote unquote wife, whatever that was. That was just a waste of time. Next match, you had Go ahead.
They will.
Oh yeah, I think it may be over with now. That may be one of those.
I think they're gonna drop it.
Yeah, that may be one that just disappears.
They're gonna drop it because. Yeah, I think that he and his the guy that's coming in, his name escaped me. That's how important I think he is. He's going to come in and he's going to end up managing Bobby Lashley and these new guys that are coming in the tag team, and I think it's going to be a new stable now. That's what I really believe.
Yeah. So then you had next match. You had Drew McIntyre taking out Andrade. Well, right there, you had Angel Garza taking out Akira Tozawa. Akira Tozawa is working both NXT shows and Raw shows. Then you had Drew McIntyre taking out Andrade. That was a gift. He was going to do that. I guess they're trying to pitch that whole stable that Aleister Black's wife had. I'm not sure what you even call that stable, but either way, they're out there chomping out. Yeah, I got you, Rose.
That's what he needs. Vince McMahon says that if Andrade can learn English and become a bilingual wrestler, Spanish and English, just like Ray Jr. is, like the Lucha Libres were in WCW, Vince said, and I read this again, that if he can learn both English and Spanish, he will put the title around his waist and he'll end up get a big push. So that's a challenge for him to be able to do that. He's getting a good push right now with McIntyre, which is great. But if he really wants to be up high, the challenge is there. And just like I'm trying to learn Spanish myself, he needs to learn English and he will be a success.
That's great. Next up, you had the Iconics coming out there and confronting Nikki Cross, Alexa Bliss in a non-title match. The Iconics get the win there. I thought that's a pretty cool little angle they're pinching there, because I was wondering who they were going to put Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss against. So either way, good match there. Then you had, it looked like a 3-way, 3-on-3, R-Truth, Ricochet, Cedric Alexander taking on MVP. I don't know about you. I think MVP is just done.
There he is, MVP.
Yeah. I don't know what the deal has been.
I couldn't remember his name. That's how done we think he is. But I do think, well, he and Bobby Lashley and those two guys, that tag team that's coming in from NXT, I think they're going to be a faction. They're really starting to push it more and more, especially with MVP and Bobby Lashley.
I tell you one thing, though, when MVP starts off the Raw show with his MVP,
and hey, R-Truth is that.
That's terrible. Yep. R-Truth is what? He's going to push now too? Next up,
I was to say, R-Truth is a heck of an entertainer.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, he that whole "What's Up" thing, that's still got play. So either way, next up you had Rey Mysterio
from Lil Jimmy and the Buck dude. It's great.
I'm with you. So there's your Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black. They take out Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy via disqualification, and then this is, most of the time when they go backstage, I'm not too fond of what's going on back there. I'd rather it go on in the ring. It is somewhat appealing sometimes, but you had Shayna Baszler taking out Natalya. And to me, the line of the night was Shayna Baszler and her comment on the man leaving to have a baby. And she just says, well, that kid is going to suck. Do you know who the father is? I rest my case. I was like, wow, she just said that on TV. That was pretty rude. But either way, Shayna Baszler, she's just a beast. This woman's all upset because she's having to give up wrestling to have a baby. And she's saying, yeah, your kid's going to suck. Pretty weak. But either way, I was kind of edgy. Speaking of edgy, go ahead.
It's also helping her put her over as a heel. It's helping put her over as a heel. There's no doubt about it. Helping put her over as a heel. And she said some bad things to Ms. Neidhart too. And they're really good friends in real life. So she knows what she's doing. She's picking her spots, and she's got to keep that heel persona going. And this is a great way for her to do it.
Yep. Then you had, speaking of edgy, she's the edgy women's thing. At some point, they got to put the title on her. Edge and Randy Orton, first time to look at each other since their WrestleMania match. It looks like they were just going to let bygones be bygones, but apparently Randy Orton wants another shot at Edge. So this is building up for the Backlash pay-per-view. Edge is not committed to this yet, but they go off the air with Randy Orton asking for a straight-up wrestling match. So that ought to be good. I think I'd like to see it. That WrestleMania match just went on way too long, but either way, it's good, exciting. These are two good competitors. It looks like it's going to come off, and I'll look forward to seeing that. Hopefully it may be before some fans. Who knows? That's mid-June. I'm not sure if they're going to be pulling it off. One thought that I've had as this continues to go on, I would bet McMahon is probably looking for the first state that's going to have some kind of way to do a show, limited fans or something. And the second that comes off, he's going to run to that state and put on some shows. I don't know what state it'll be, but who knows? This ought to be a good match for Backlash. That's the way Raw ended this week. Overall, it was pretty decent Raw coming out after a pay-per-view. NXT this week, not a lot of big action there. We'll run down what happened on a card. They've got a NXT Tag Championship. It looks like they've got the match going on with the Imperium versus Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher. They're the champions, and Imperium wins the title, so they're the new NXT Tag Championship. Next up, you had there they are right there, the new champions. Next up, you had Tegan Nox taking out Indy Hartwell. Indy Hartwell was the girl that Shayna Baszler put her arm in a ladder a couple of weeks ago. Well, there she is wrestling right there. Pretty decent competitor, but Tegan Nox gets the win. Then you had an NXT Cruiserweight Championship match. Jake Atlas, he gets the win over Tony Nese with his Rainbow DDT. Next up, you had Cameron Grimes in a match that was set up last week against Finn Balor. Finn Balor is nothing but pushing the NXT storyline and angle because, again, he's just down there in NXT, and he seems like he's losing more often than not just to put guys over. So he lets Cameron Grimes, he gets the win over him. That was probably the match of the night. Then you had for the interim NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament match also, you had Jack Gallagher taking out Isaiah Swerve Scott. Jack Gallagher, he used to be compared to me to Sheamus for the whiteness of his skin. So now he's got the full chest tattoo to cover that whiteness up. So I don't know what to make of that. Then you had Caden Carter taking out Aaliyah. And then the match of the night, the main event, you had Matt Riddle taking out Timothy Thatcher. Good match. NXT's not bad. I mean, it's a decent show. Still losing in the rankings, but Wednesday night is becoming a harder and harder show to get good ratings, as I'll discuss in a minute when we talk about AEW. But either way, NXT, pretty decent show. I do like the one thing I like about NXT is those wrestlers seem to stick to NXT. You don't have a lot of them going back and forth, because right now you've got a lot of people showing up on Raw, then they show up on SmackDown, and it's kind of like defeating the purpose of having all these organizations, because you want to watch a show, that's the show, and those are the wrestlers, and not see them go back and forth, because if you see them wrestle on Monday, the chances are, are you interested in seeing them again on Friday? You probably want to see them, stick to their shows. I guess that was the original plan. They may be getting away from it now because certain people perform better to the empty arenas. Who knows? On to SmackDown last night, top of the show, you had the Money in the Bank winner, Otis, coming out, appearing on Miz TV. Miz is just so great on the mic, making a fool of him. What do you think of that one, Haz-Bin?
You asked me a question yesterday who I think were like the best talkers in the business in the old. Obviously, you've got Flair. You're going to have Dusty Rhodes. You're going to have Paul Dangerously, Paul Heyman. But these up and coming guys right now, Miz, man, he's from someone that won the MTV Real World thing, and everybody ribbed him, and he had to dress outside in the hallway and all this other stuff. From where he was back then to where he is now, it is absolutely, I know you hear this a million times, but it's true. It's night and day. The guy's in-ring work, the titles he's won, he's a reality star, he's got a beautiful wife and children, and he's getting so much better on the mic, and he's like a success story for how you can make it in this business if you really want to do it. Just a lot of desire and guts and grit. You hear that a lot, guts and grit and desire, but Mike Mazzarian, aka Miz, I mean, he's the man. Becky's the mom now. Becky's the mom now. Miz will be the man.
Yeah, and then earlier this week you had the story break. I'm not sure what day this week it broke, but Sami Zayn's being stripped of the title. I'm not sure if it had something to do with him not wanting to wrestle because of the coronavirus or what was going on with that. But either way, he wasn't defending it at all. I felt like, man, I was kind of quick. I mean, he just won it at he won it at was it Royal Rumble or was the Elimination Chamber? He won it, and then he defended it at WrestleMania.
It was one. He beat Braun Strowman. Yeah, he beat Braun Strowman for it. And you're saying that he may have been stripped because he didn't want to defend. He did not want to defend. And from what I was told, or what I read rather, Mr. McMahon said if you didn't want to wrestle during this pandemic, it was your choice. However, got to put an asterisk by it. If you're a champion, you have an obligation. Because Ric Flair used to always say in the Horseman days, whether you're sick, you got personal problems, you're injured, whatever, you got to do what you got to do. And you noticing right now, all of the champions that have titles, they're showing up regardless of this. So if he doesn't want to do it, it's his choice, but he's going to have to give up that belt. And that may sound kind of cruel to say that, but it's not fair to any one of these other guys and ladies that are champions that are showing up to defend those titles. So as much as I respect the fact that he wants to stay safe and all and everything, he either had to drop the belt or do what they had to do, because it's not fair to everyone else who has to defend their titles. I mean, Roman Reigns is a class act. I mean, he doesn't want to wrestle, but he doesn't have a belt. So it's okay.
No doubt. Either way, so they're stripping over the title. They're having a tournament for it right out the gate. The first tournament match is Elias versus King Corbin. Those two guys have been battling back and forth. Elias gets the win there. I see that, and I'm going, hey, Elias would be a pretty good IC champion. He's been there long enough. They haven't really pitched him enough. But either way, I'm kind of excited to see Elias get that win there. King Corbin is kind of on the downward spiral, it looks like. Who knows? Next up, you had Dana Brooke versus Naomi. She gets the win there. Dana Brooke does, by the way, by her jackknife pin. And then for the NXT Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair, she shows up to cut her promo to do the cross-branding of NXT Women's title versus SmackDown title. You got Bayley out there. You've got Charlotte. You've got Banks. So who knows how this is going to play out. I'm not sure if it'll be a three-way or what, but it looks like Sasha Banks and Bayley may be headed towards a match towards each other to see who's going to fight Flair or something of that nature.
That had been going on for a long time, and I think that everyone knew that was going to happen. You can see in Sasha Banks' eyes, the more and more you're seeing that she's starting to get a little perturbed about the comments that Bayley is saying about being the best champion of all time and everything. But with these being three of the four horsemen, women with the fourth one obviously going to have a child, they work so well together back to their days in NXT, and I think the best way for Sasha and Bayley to have this feud go on would be with the blessing and the help of their best friend / horsewoman, Charlotte Flair.
No doubt. That she's doing a great job. I mean, she's one that I don't mind going back and forth between different brands because she does such a great job pushing the women's divisions and all three of them. So just a great performer. Always tune in. You see her on the TV. You'll definitely want to go over there and tune in and see what's going on. Next up, you had another IC Championship tournament match. Daniel Bryan taking out, I thought it was his friend, Drew Gulak. So he gets the win with that heel hook submission that he does. Next up, you had Sonya Deville and Dolph Ziggler cutting a promo in the back, making fun of what would happen if Mandy Rose and Otis had a kid or whatever, just doing nothing more than to throw fire on that flame. So next week, you've got a 4-way mixed tag match between Dolph Ziggler, Sonya Deville, Otis, and Mandy Rose. That was coming a mile away. The main event on SmackDown this week, Otis, Braun teams with Otis. They take out Miz and John Morrison via pinfall after Strowman hit Morrison with the power slam. So that was a good match right there. It is kind of funny, kind of hokey pokey that Otis is in the position that he's at. I guess he's just left his tag partner, Heavy Machinery guy, in the dust. I don't really know how that'll reform or what will happen with that. But they do have some good matches. They announced some good matches for next week's SmackDown. Go ahead and hit it, Punk, with the next one. You've got Charlotte Flair taking on Bayley, champion versus champion next week. Don't know how that'll play out. I'm guessing it'll probably end in some kind of heated no contest match to build a Sasha Banks insert there for a 3-way possibly. Who knows? Then you've got next one, Punk. You've got that's a great IC match there. These guys used to feud a couple of years ago. AJ Styles. Okay. That's scheduled for next week. And I believe they've got another IC match, tournament match. What's the next one, Punk? Right there, you've got Jeff Hardy and Sheamus. That's one that seems like could go either way, but it looks like they want to probably build those two, that feud between those two guys for a while. So who knows? But those are some great matches. I mean, right out the gate, they're putting out matches that you're actually excited to see the show next week, regardless of whether it's in front of fans or not. So I'm excited about those. Any final takes on SmackDown?
One thing I did want to add, I know we were all talking, we were really big on AJ Styles to win the Money in the Bank, and he was actually my pick, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. But now they made mention that the only championship AJ Styles has never obtained in his WWE career is the Intercontinental Championship. And we go back to the days of Pat Patterson and way back when the Intercontinental Championship was always, it wasn't the stepping stone, the world title like the U.S. Championship is for the WCW title back in the day. This Intercontinental Championship, it pretty much was a title of its own. It made a lot of careers from Austin and Rock and Flair and Michaels and Triple H. And I can go for days, man. The thing is, that Intercontinental Championship, because of the Bret Hart and the Ultimate Warrior and all those, man, it's way back in that title is not a stepping stone to the WWE Championship like the U.S. Championship was for the WCW title. I know I said that, but I'm trying to get to a point. AJ Styles has never won that belt, and for order for him to cement his career in the WWE, he should win that belt. And now I'm really thinking that the World Championship may not have been a fit for him. This is probably more down his line because this is going to help cement his legacy in the WWE by winning that belt.
Yeah, ought to be good. That's a good take. Either way, on to AEW. We always hit when we hit off AEW, we let everybody know what the rankings were this week. When I looked them up, it was kind of a downer. You would think the week after week, the no fan shows, whether AEW puts a few fans in the seats, aka other wrestlers. Overall, the rankings are seriously down for both NXT and AEW, but AEW still edges out NXT. They had some big rumors this week in AEW world. Well, one of them is not a rumor. It's confirmed that Mike Tyson's going to be at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view next weekend. Then you had something going out there with some backstory to support it. You've got Sting showing up in AEW, and that right there was further. That story got some more weight to it when you mentioned Harlem Heat, Booker T, saying that, hey, he's thinking this is how Sting wants to go out as being relevant in wrestling. So his best way to do that is AEW. So who knows? That ought to be exciting if he shows up at Double or Nothing. AEW, they continue to do a good job pushing.
His contract is up.
Yep. Yep. So
yeah, his contract with WWE is up. His whatever he had. So this is a perfect way for him to do it. But this Double or Nothing thing. Watching it, what was it, Wednesday night? Man, they're really pushing they're pushing their luck with Vince, so to speak. Because the thing with Mike Tyson, I mean, they brought him in with Shawn Michaels that time against Steve Austin, and that match when he was a referee and he turned on Michaels, went with Austin, and now they're doing this casino chip that's hanging from the top. I mean, if that's not the biggest ripoff of the Money in the Bank, you tell me what the heck is. So, I mean, they're really pushing their limits with Vince's patience and stuff like that. But one of the things I noticed, you say AEW versus NXT and the rating wars. I don't think it's a war at all. I don't even think it should even be relevant even to track those numbers and ratings, because in me, this is my opinion, okay, for whatever it's worth, AEW is not competing against NXT. They're competing against WWE. AEW is trying to be the next WCW, the new and improved WCW. NXT always has been and always will be the breeding ground, the practice squad for the WWE, where the guys go to get trained and get ready to make their way to the big times when they get called up. AEW is not a practice squad. These guys are established veterans that either didn't make it to WWE or they did make it to WWE. They're trying to be the new and improved WCW. And I think we've talked about one, Jack. I believe at one point they're going to get there. But that, again, this is just my thoughts contributing. I don't think there's any reason to if AEW is going to lose to NXT in the rating war, that's not good at all. You should never lose to a practice squad team. You just shouldn't. I'm sorry. And I don't mean disrespect calling them practice squad. I just see it. That is a ground for these guys to train at the performance, to get ready to get called up. There ain't no calling up in AEW. That is the top dog.
Yep. No doubt. That's a good point. So maybe next week we start the Wednesday night. We just call it the Wednesday night update and just leave it at that. Because that's a good point, that we are tracking them and comparing them to the bottom of the WWE family. So either way, good point. So on to the AEW show. They're pitching the Double or Nothing. There he is, Mike Tyson. He's going to make the appearance this Saturday. I love the Saturday pay-per-views. AEW Dynamite this week starts out with the Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer coming out with Jake the Snake. Great angle, good storyline, good performer. Jake the Snake had his snake out last week with Cody's wife. That was pretty good throwback material there. So either way, I like the angles that they're pushing with these guys. Look forward to the match next Saturday. Next match, you had Best Friends taking out
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, God bless Diamond Dallas Page. We used to always joke about him and rib him back in the days in WCW and all. Had that little doll and all that. But God bless him, because he helped resurrect not the careers but the lives of Jake Roberts and Scott Hall. And I know Scott's still having some issues, but Jake Roberts, man, look what he's doing now. That guy just he is not to beat from his Mid-South days, WCW days, WWF days, and now he's in AEW. He's not missing a beat. This dude is just top class, and it wouldn't have been for DDP's help, he may not be with us right now. He may be deceased. So God bless DDP for bringing this guy back and saving his not only his career but his life. And Jake's, I can tell Jake Roberts is so appreciative of it, because look what he's doing right now. Just look what I mean, he's probably the best he's ever been.
Yep. Enjoying life again, it looks like. Next match, you had Best Friends taking out Jurassic Express. Kind of figured that was the way that was going to go. Then you had a women's four-way match. Akira Shida, Dr. Britt Baker, your favorite, Chris Statlander, and Penelope Ford. Akira Shida gets the win there, so she's going to be fighting for the title at Double or Nothing next week. Then you had Matt Hardy, Omega versus Santana and Ortiz from the Inner Circle. Of course, Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega get the win there. That's pretty good. So what is that title that Kenny Omega carries around each week?
I think he's had that in Japan.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of weird that he has that the cross-branded or whatever is going on, like they're in partnership or something. To me, if you carry out a belt, you should at some point be defending it on that organization's deal. So I guess maybe there's some kind of co-branding going on that he will defend it at some time. And then you had MJF finally in a match. This is his first match since that last pay-per-view. I don't know if he was injured or what, but he comes out there and beats Lee Johnson. After the match, he cuts a promo. challenging Marco Stunt to a match on next week's show. So MJF, I guess he does have the match next Saturday at the Double or Nothing. He's in that ladder match, or what they call it, the ladder match, the chip or whatever. So he'll be in that one. Then you had Jericho taking out Pineapple Pete.
Yeah.
Pretty good match there. And then Jericho right there just saying he's still the man.
Oh boy, Pineapple Pete.
And then you had Brody Lee, who's been chomping at the bit to get after Moxley. He lays out Christopher Daniels, and Christopher Daniels, he wrestled a great match. He didn't want to sell himself short, get overrun, but Brody Lee taking on John Moxley at the pay-per-view next week ought to be great.
Right.
That was a really good match. Brody Lee is performing great coming over from WWE. He's very exciting to watch. You walk into the room, you see him on, you have an interest in watching him. So into the show, that was a pretty good AEW show. I do like the little teasing that they got for Sting possibly, for sure, Mike Tyson. So the Double or Nothing as we know it right now, you've got the next slide, you've got Moxley versus Brody Lee. Then you've got Cody versus Lance Archer for that TNT Championship title. That ought to be great. Who knows? I bet there's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on in that one. Outside stuff going on. It ought to be great. MJF versus Jungle Boy. I'm not really sure Jungle Boy has a chance there. Then you have, there's the match that was made this week, Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. Again, that ought to be a really good match there. I hope they take the title from Rose. I'm done with her being the champion, or him or her or whatever, however you want to say it. I'm done with Rose being the champion. That's the best way to say it. All right. So yeah, that's right. It, whatever you want to say, Rose. I call her by her name, or the name. I call her by the name. So either way, next week we'll do a final rundown, because our show will come on right before
its name
pay-per-view. Its name. It will be wrestling next week, and we'll do a rundown before that pay-per-view next Saturday. On to what we always like to cover, the independents. This week we cover East Coast professional wrestling. Again, we like them just because of the names that they bring in. Checking out their Facebook page this week, they have several videos out there. Everything from Jim the Anvil Neidhart matches are on there. Tommy Dreamer matches are on there. It's just if you're looking for just a quick fix on some old classic wrestling and see these guys in different environments wrestle, ECPW can hook you up. Their Facebook page is great. On to Wrestling 225. They've got, at one point in the last couple of weeks, they had a Mayor's Cup for late in June. They were going to do the social distancing thing there. It was for June 20th. I'm not 100% confident that show is still going to go off. They may end up pushing it a little bit just due to the scheduling of events that people can go to. So either way, we'll continue to follow that and post it here or talk about it here, Mayor's Cup. And then in August, which I would think it could go off no chance, you've got the 225 Mania. Everybody's looking for Corey Constantine to defend his title at some point. Reaching out to him today, he didn't have any information on the Mayor's Cup. Right now, it's just wait and see. Hopefully, we'll definitely be there one way or the other if and when it comes off. We'll be excited to see that. On to Wildcat Wrestling. Like all the other independents, they're looking to get their shows going again. On the books right now, they've got the X-rated show that we've talked about. And there's your guy, Bill Alfonso. Too Cold Scorpio is going to be there. Joey Ryan. So that ought to be a great show if you like X-rated shows. Go ahead. We're good. All right. And then
he's just him, Bill Alfonso.
Yeah, there he is right there, man. So also, just like we did for ECPW, on their Facebook page, they're promoting their show that's weekly on Saturday night at 11 o'clock. It replays on Sunday on WUPL 54, My 54 TV out of New Orleans. Watch it. It's good entertainment. It's, some of it is older footage, whatever, but it's always good to watch. It's always good to see these up-and-coming guys. So there it is. Watch Wildcat Sports on WUPL My 54 coming out of New Orleans. If you can get that, great. If not, check out their Facebook page because they have a lot of the content there to follow their wrestlers. So with that being said, later on tonight, we're going to do a special show at 7 p.m. We have a special guest, Sean Crow, also from the indie world. He's wrestled. He's currently wrestling in Action Pack Wrestling. He's also wrestled in some other Gulf South, Louisiana, Deep South organizations. That show will just be a special just to interview him, to get his take on what's going on in the indie world down south, any events he's got coming up, anything he would like to promote with what's going on in the organizations he wrestles with. So any parting comments, Haz-Bin?
Well, let's see. Parting comments. I know for WWE, we mentioned that we have a new Money in the Bank champions with Otis, and you talked about how Tucker is no longer with him. I think Vince deliberately, for whatever reason, split him up. Normally, he likes whenever a tag team kind of gets hot for a while, he likes to split them up. He did it with the Rockers and all these other guys so they don't kind of get old, but he hasn't done it with the New Day yet. We'll talk about that maybe some other time. But Otis obviously is going his own way, has some kind of a push. Asuka being the women's champion makes perfect sense. The absolute best choice to make, short of Charlotte Flair, because she's the NXT champ. Asuka did give Becky Lynch her most trouble, so it's only right that she gets it. And again, heartfelt congratulations to Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, who were real life fiance and fiance, boy and man, woman. Best of luck to them. We'll move on from there. And it looks like I really think for the Intercontinental Championship, it was a situation where you've got to defend your title, whether or not you're uncomfortable being there or not. You still got to put the title up for grabs. And for whatever reason, he didn't want to put the belt up. So it's got to be fair to everybody else and let them do it, which makes perfect good sense. And we'll go from that point with that. The thing with Becky Lynch, not Becky Lynch, the thing with Sasha Banks and Bayley and Charlotte, certainly if the Bayley and Sasha feud is going to implode, Charlotte will be the best place to do it. As for the AEW deal, they're doing really good. They're holding their own, so to speak. But like you had said before, I think some new people are going to be coming in. Maybe you're Sting, maybe you're Tyson, maybe things like that. Some other folks that maybe we don't know about, with their contracts expiring with WWE, maybe making a wiggle there. And one of the things I was talking to a friend of mine about was that when you're in WWE, you work 300 plus days a year. Vince pretty much says yes or no, and that's how it goes. AEW, you have a relaxed schedule, and you pretty much get to do what you want, and you get to contribute and have creative control. Haven't heard that word in a while, have we? Since the Hogan days, creative control. And that's something that John Moxley has been able to do, and Jericho's been able to do, and Matt Hardy's coming in, and all these other guys. They're able to actually have some kind of input on where they want their career to go, and not just Mr. McMahon that says, rinse, lather, repeat. What? Rinse, lather, repeat. And that's how it is. So that's probably what they're going to do. The more people come in, the better it's going to be. Looking forward to the show at 7 o'clock tonight. We haven't done a double shot in a while. They used to call these double shots back in the day when you wrestle one show and then 6-7 hours later you do another show that night. I mean, Ric Flair did millions of them in his career. Well, we're going to do our first double shot today when we come back on again later tonight and speak with Sean Crow. So looking forward to that one as well. Hope everybody's doing well with this pandemic bit. I know, like we had said earlier, states to states are doing their deal. I think in Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards has opened everything up except for physical contact, which is why I don't think you'll be able to do any like football or wrestling or anything of that sort yet. But like you said before, whenever it does come up and running and Vince hears that, he's going to go running like a scalded dog to get it done. So we bear our time and hope for the best.
All righty. I'm Jack Jaw. This has been the Ringside Wrangler Wrestling Report, our regular edition for the week. We are out. We'll check you later tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm Jack Jaw.
Look, it's the claw.
Comments or feedback. There he is, the claw. If you got any comments or feedback, reach out to him.
Baron Von Rashley.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's his move right there. So hit us up. You want to reach out to us, ringsidewranglers@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook Live or Facebook or YouTube. We are there reporting the news. I'm Jack Jaw. I am out.